Come on, everyone sit down and listen to the greatest debate in all of history. We'll give you everything that you've been missing. Introducing Nothing Special.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nothing Specialty Podcast, where we dive into deep discussions and hard-hitting debate. My name is Chris, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben.
Hey, what's up, everyone? One day they'll be able to talk back to me.
Yeah, maybe we can, live stream at some point, and then there can be a chat that'll say, hey, we're doing good.
I was thinking something more along the lines of Ready Player One, where I can actually interact with everyone on the internet.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it's just taking the Twitch chat to a VR chat kind of a thing instead of just them being able to type an answer. I don't know.
I feel like trolls would invest in that technology more than actual people, though, just so they could fuck with you. Yeah,
possibly. I mean, if you go on to VR chat now, with the people who have VR headsets, it's a pretty crazy place. Lots of weird videos come out from there.
Interesting. One more reason not to get VR.
Well, I mean, you could just not go in. I have the Samsung VR thing, and it's not really supposed to be able to work with the Note 9 because it was made 2 or 3 generations before it. But all that was stopping it was the size of it, because if you actually plug it in to the Type-C port on it, it works. It's just it can't click in. So I modified it, and I got the VR headset from a family member who had it for their S7 or something, and so
a little while ago.
Yeah, or maybe it was an S8. I don't remember, but they weren't using it anymore because they got a different phone. So they were like, "Hey, you can have it." So I just took a knife and cut out some of the rubber part of the clip-in thing, so there was enough room. So then, without a case, of course, you can clip a Note 9 into the Samsung VR. So I have a VR thing on my phone, and I have spent a few afternoons just watching YouTube, laying on my bed, not having to crane my neck at all, look up at a screen, just laying back and watching a virtual big screen TV that's playing Game Grumps or whatever, just relaxing. And that has been a pretty neat experience.
Interesting.
So, I mean, don't bash the VR. It's actually pretty relaxing and cool.
I mean, for me, it doesn't work, but that's a personal thing. I don't know if you remember when we tried to do the Jurassic Park VR.
Yeah. And that was a pretty cool experience for me and the other people we did it with, but you were
it was still a cool experience.
Fun.
I just got off of it and wanted to throw up.
Yeah. Had to have one of your eyes closed or something because nothing would focus, right?
Yeah, because for some reason me and my eyes can't get 3D going for some weird ungodly reason. But yeah.
But heck, even with my glasses though, it works. So it's big enough to include my glasses in it, so I can enjoy VR and look at it clearly. But even without glasses, because I have astigmatism, so everything, no matter how short or far it is away from me, has a vertical tear. So there's 2 images and they're vertically separated a little bit. And so it's hard to I have to squint to make them one image again. But for things that are closer up, of course, that tearing, because it's from my eye, it doesn't look as big as if something's a whole football field away and it's tearing. It's feet apart, but if it's inches from my face, it's only just barely not good. So VR is inches from my face, so it's just barely not clear. And so I can, even if I couldn't use my glasses because of the way my eyes are, I could just squint a little bit and it would be I have pretty much perfect vision because it's so close to my face.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, it appears that everything is far away from your face because it puts the 2 images at the right places so that when your eyes focus, if they can, then they will it'll trick them into thinking that the object is far away because there's 2 objects, one on each of your eyes, and it's displaying not in the exact same place, and so it makes the impression that it's like distant. So, but it's not. So my eyes are okay with it. So, what has been going on with you this week?
Not a lot. A lot of work, actually. That was the big one. I've been working a lot. One thing though is, do you remember that conversation we had about on the podcast about e-cigs and finally being made illegal?
Oh,
for
yeah.
like anyone under 21, I think is what it was. Well,
yeah.
Apparently there was a giant loophole, but because the news coverage didn't cover it, it didn't solve really anything. But the loophole is the new law only covers like the reusable stuff. So like buying anything that you put the liquid in. So if you're under 21, including a high schooler, you can go buy e-cigs with nicotine in them as long as they're disposable. And I guess for a lot of people, it's actually cheaper.
Weird.
So now, like, I guess like the loophole first hit in like high schools because kids were quick to find out about it, and then like they were essentially trying to say this is illegal, you can't do this, and the teens were like, no, it's not. And then it was just like, so like that law ended up doing nothing other than making e-cig companies, for like the purposes of children, switch to a different form of e-cig. That thing we talked about where we were like, if it isn't ironclad, there's going to be a loophole kind of thing. And they're going to take advantage of it, kind of like like the switchblade that isn't a switchblade that Smith & Wesson sells.
Mm-hmm.
Because it comes out the top of the knife instead of flipping from the side like a normal knife does. So it's not technically a switchblade by the definition of a switchblade. And it's like, I mean, you're technically right, but I mean, or like how bump stocks were perfectly legal way to have an automatic weapon, despite the fact that it was like, not really in the spirit of it all until we figured out a way to,
thankfully.
Yeah. Thankfully it was solved. But the point is, it's one of those things where it's like, is it really that hard? Like, I get it. There were probably, we know for a fact the e-cigarette companies were like lobbying against that, obviously. But like, apparently they like, now it's being talked about because like we didn't know, and no one really noticed the loophole at first, but it was a pretty big concession on the part of the lawmakers who should have not conceded that. Like,
wasn't that? I thought that was
a very popular. Everyone on each side of the aisle agreed on it thing.
Yeah, I thought that was like an executive order from Trump.
No, it was like signed into law by him though. It got in front of him, and it was. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay. So it was a bill. I think Congress.
I'm pretty
passed?
sure. Yeah, it was like, I'm pretty sure it was an actual bill that was passed. But again, it apparently was too specific on the part of e-cigs. Like, it covered cigarettes, obviously, but it was too specific to e-cigs. To the point where, as long as it's disposable, you can still get a hold of it. And it's not really that big of a concession for, like, the e-cig companies to make, because now it's like, they have to buy these products more often. So they're still making plenty of money. And technically, they could artificially raise the price because they now know that they're going to gravitate towards it because it's their new fix. So it's one of those things where it was like, it was universally agreed on that this was kind of getting out of hand. The people who probably had bad things to say about it weren't old enough to either affect it or were like under 21. And all the 21-year-olds were like, I don't fucking care. But like, so it was just one of those things where I'm just like, that's a pretty big concession. I'm actually kind of upset about it. Like, I'm very curious just how many campaign contributions were made for that one. Like for multiple people too. Because this feels like it was kind of snuck through the cracks too for the American, like, because it wasn't publicized, that part, until recently. Now that the loophole's being used, I don't know. Like, it actually kind of bugs me that it happened. Like, because I mean, we said it would happen if they weren't careful, but like the wording was even
like Juuls are still affected, but it must be some other kind of like disposable thing. Because that's what my mind went to was Juuls when you were saying a disposable one. But I guess Juuls might not be disposable. I don't know. I don't know e-cigs. I don't know that vape stuff.
I think it was a Juuls product that's still available. Actually, kept the article in case I had to reference it. They're called puff bars. That's like the slang for them. And it isn't Juul. But it does bring up how companies like Juul are going to start pushing the thing. But it's called a puff bar, and it looks like a flash drive.
A puff bar?
Yeah, that's like the slang for it. It's actually...
Oh my gosh.
No, it's not just the slang. It's the actual name of the product, I guess. It's called a puff bar.
I mean, why am I surprised?
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because we talked about it. The part that surprises me is just how, like, when I actually went back and read the part of the law that allowed it, it was so blatantly out there that, like, no one caught it, and it was not publicized at all until now that it's being taken advantage of. But it's one of those things where it's like, no self-respecting reporter, like, every reporter got this one fucking wrong. You know, like, there is no blameless news and the only blameless news organization would be one so small that it didn't have the effect of reporting on the problem. But, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, all of you saw this. There's no way none of you saw this. It wasn't like tacked on at the end in some vague wording. It was like clearly in there. And it clearly was a concession. Which means, again, that's why I kind of want to be like, I wonder how big of contributions these people made to these people's campaigns.
Yeah, that's weird.
But yeah, that was the big one that...
So trying to do something to fix the problem, getting everyone's support, and then it didn't fix the problem. I mean, it fixed some of it, but not like...
All it's going to do is they're just going to buy a different product that does the exact same thing. That's what it is. So it didn't fix the problem.
Nope.
Like, for a week, I had teenagers asking me, like, will you go buy us cigarettes or e-cig stuff because we can't anymore? And I would always tell them no, and you shouldn't be asking me that, especially since most of them asked me that at work. And now it's like, no wonder they stopped asking. There was a loophole there the whole time, and now I'm finding out about it. Well, I mean, then again, I'm sure I wasn't the only adult. I'm sure after I said no a few times, they found an adult who was willing to say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that mostly sucks for the people who are over 21 who are making money selling them to the kids, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just find it frustrating that it's like, I feel like we made progress on something and it's irrelevant. And I guess, like, personally, it's just I find it so frustrating. You know? I really hate it when we think we're getting somewhere on a problem and then it's just like, nope. But yeah, so other than that, it's been a pretty slow week for me, I guess, other than like work, but nothing like too eventful. Oh, actually, that's a lie. There was one thing I wanted to talk about and bring up. Warranties. Frustrating as all hell. Like, I'm not sure if this is for everywhere, because like, I don't really usually use warranties, because most of the time I don't have to. But I had to send in my Razer mouse that was having problems. And it's a month later, they finally send me the email saying, okay, you've given us all the information and stuff we wanted. You've properly agreed. You've dealt with us for a month straight, emailing us almost on a daily basis. And then they sent me a pre-made label to send mine to them. And then like a week after that, they finally tell me, we're in the process of FedExing your, what's it called? Your new mouse to you. So I've been out without a mouse for over a week now. And I was without a functional mouse, like a completely functional mouse that was having all sorts of problems and cutting out for even much longer than that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a cheap mouse either. I bought like the Mamba. So I bought a $90 plus mouse. It was not an inexpensive buy.
Yeah, it should have been consistent for you, but...
And well, the thing was, they kept asking for the same information constantly. Like they were like, well, we'll know if he's just trying to scam us because he'll give up. Like, I figured after they asked for the video that I sent them, and they got, and said, yes, there is a problem here, it would just be done and over with. And then they're like, well, we need your all your serial number details again. First off, my Razer product is registered with my account with a serial number. And you can't look this up? Jeez. Or are you trying to verify that I still have it? Because first off, I could still get the information. It's registered to my account. So I could just lie to you.
Yeah.
So I just sent them pictures of my product with the serial number. And it was just like, the multiple times had to do this. And it was just like, guys, I'm not scamming you. I need my mouse fixed.
Yeah. It's kind of a similar thing, not as much like red tape, but like a stupid like policy. So Best Buy did this thing with I think there's 2 different brands now of screen protectors, but it was just Armor Edge, where if you buy an Armor Edge, then and you can come back at any time for as long as you have it with a cracked screen protector, and they will replace the screen protector for free. So they'll just do an exchange, the cracked one for the new one. So you always have to give your cracked one up. I mean, that makes sense because you don't want to be getting screen protector after screen protector just showing the same cracked screen to different Best Buys or whatever. So I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But then if they don't have your screen protector in stock, then they won't just see your cracked screen, order one, and then when it comes, call you, and then you go in and exchange your cracked one for the new one. No, they want to take your cracked one and leave your phone unprotected for maybe a week while it gets to their store, and then you come in and get it. So for a week you have nothing, just their promise that you will get a screen protector sometime soon. But if you don't order it, then who knows when it's going to come, because they're not like actively pursuing it. So it's like, it's just needing to take the old product before ordering the new one. Like, I get exchanging it hand to hand right then. Yeah, give up so you can get the new one. Great. But sending in like a broken phone, and then you're without a phone, which is in this stage of our like existence, a necessity on a daily basis in order to do your job and do your like everything. You have to be without a phone for like 2 weeks while they like assess the damages and fix it and send you a new one or send the old one back to you. You know, it's like, it's those kind of business practices just make me just livid. And I know why they do it too. It's because they don't want you to take advantage of their free stuff for bringing in the broken thing. You're like, well, I have to be without a phone for a week. Well, I'm gonna keep with my old one with the broken screen. Then I don't care. Like, I don't care that much. I need it.
Yeah, because your need for it might supersede your want for a fixed one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually really dumb. Not kind of dumb. It's really fucking stupid.
Yeah, exactly. and there's so many companies that do that you need to send in your old one that's broken or that's barely hobbling along but functional still, and then you're without anything for a time. So like, what if I gave them my cracked screen, they order it, and then like a couple days later my unprotected screen gets cracked?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a cracked screen protector still protects your screen. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So that would not be, it would be worth it to avoid getting a cracked screen, but to just buy a new screen protector and pay for the new one.
Exactly. You know? At that point, you're just like, I guess I'll just buy a new one. It's more safe somehow. No, I agree with you. It's almost like it's there to disencourage you from using the thing they've said you totally have. Yeah. I had a similar problem with Target. I forget what I brought an electronic from Target. I forget what it was, but it stopped working, and I got the protection plan from it. And
with the thing you have to pay like $20 or $30 for when you buy an electronic item.
And when
like, there's a 3-year warranty.
Exactly, through the store, supposedly.
Yeah.
So I asked them. One of my first questions was, so I just bring it back here to the customer service desk, and they said yes. And I was like, well, then that's worth it. About a year, like less than a year later, I have a problem because it was like under 2 years protection. And I bring it in and I say, yeah, this is having problems. And I was like, I know with the protection plan, I can either get a refund or a replacement. I was like, I'd rather just get the refund at this point because it's not worth it to me. It broke too easily. And they were like, oh, well, you can't do that here. You have to like call the people on your protection plan. I was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah.
That's not you?
I was like, that's not what I was told. I was like, okay, who do I contact? Oh, I'm not sure, but it would be on your receipt. What receipt? The one you bought when you bought the product, it'll be on your receipt. So you're saying if I can't find this receipt, despite the fact that I'm in the system with like, they had me sign stuff and like I was in a system. Like, it's not like if there was like no, if they didn't give me anything to like prove it was like I had it, that'd be one thing. But like there was like an email confirmation and everything. Like I am somewhere in a system. There is proof that like it shouldn't be up to me to keep track of stuff when you clearly are taking my personal information and recording me down as having it. Just like the Razor thing. I know you have the information because I log onto my account and go, hey, here's the information. Oh, I also could. Oh yeah, when Razer was contacting me, I couldn't use. I remember why I had to take pictures. I couldn't use the they didn't want the serial number from my account. They wanted a picture of it.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like,
so they did want like proof that you still had.
Yeah,
it.
but like I still feel it's just like what? Okay, like it's so frustrating. Like all the red tape nowadays. Like, I get it. Yeah. They have to protect themselves to a certain extent, but there's also a certain extent where it's like, I have been without a mouse for my computer for over a month now. At least a functional one. Like, I would be using...
And when I bought it, I was sold a warranty.
Exactly.
You told me I could give it back to you and you'd replace it.
Exactly.
Like that, if it was just calling a place and being like, hey, your product broke, I want a new one, when there was no previous warranty that was advertised, that would be one thing. And yeah, they can do whatever they want then. But there was an advertised warranty that sometimes you paid for.
Oh, yeah. Well, and in the case of, like, I just remembered this too. I had to send them the broken product despite the fact that I proved I had it and a video of it not working. And I still had, and I had to send that in before they would ship out the one that's, I don't even know if it's shipped yet because they said they'd send me details. I have yet to be sent details. I just, at this point, but they also, like, I emailed them back recently saying, like, hey, one of those details coming in, but I'm not holding my breath because when I emailed them originally saying, hey, I sent my product back to you and it's been over a week. Where's my replacement? They were like, oh, sorry, we'll send you, you've been approved. We'll get it to you as soon as possible. It's in the works. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's in the works. What part, like, I don't think they understand just how long and arduous this process has been, or they do, and again, they're counting on it to discourage this in the future. But at the same time, like, I'm not spending $90 on a product that I did buy and is not functioning when I am owed that free thing. $90 is a day's worth, like, half a day's worth of work at my job. Yeah. Like, no. Like, that's, like, sometimes you're, like, I'm sorry, my job isn't so great that I'm willing to just throw cash around on a new mouse that I am owed. And no, I'm not being an entitled little brat by saying I'm owed it. That was in our like contract when I bought it. That was part of the buying agreement. I am not being spoiled. That's what I paid for. Part of the reason I paid for the premium price for it was the fact that you get a premium return policy. Or at least you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Like so I'm not spoiled. I'm asking what's due to me. That I paid for. Oh, and they kept sending me an email. Every time I'd get an email update, it was like, sorry for the long delays if you've had any. We've been restructuring our customer service. And I'm just like, it was like tagged at the bottom of like every email, kind of like the whole, like, emails stop if you don't want us emailing you back anymore. So it was like clearly for like everyone, like not just for me. And it's just like, well, you're doing a shit job at your restructuring.
Yeah, like, and I feel like maybe that they're not restructured. That's just what they put on there to try and circumvent some of the rage that people have because they know the system's screwed. You know?
Yeah, they know they're fucking people at this point. It's just a convenient way to excuse their behavior.
Yeah. Well, anyways, speaking of systems that are broken. We should move on to our topic and talk about some systems that we want to create, I think. So what is our topic this week?
Our topic for this week is going to be, is there anything that humanity should be investing in? So, like, for instance, and when I say humanity, I mean, like, not like a country or something. Like, as a species, is there something we should be looking into doing? And not small. So, like, not like something that can happen in a day or even a year. We're talking decades or centuries worth of work. So, one that I think is a worthwhile investment for humanity is colonizing the moon and then Mars. And it's not out of some misguided want to be an astronaut, because honestly, I could give two shits about being an astronaut personally.
Mhm.
But the person in me who like thinks, this is a good idea for these reasons, looks at the reasons and then goes, yeah, this is a great idea. So first off, colonizing the moon would have to come first, because once you colonize the moon, you now have access to a launching platform that makes space travel from that point onward far more like essentially economical. Because right now it takes, I think it's like 10 pounds of rocket fuel to send a pound of something else into space.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So for me, I'm 185 pounds, so it would be 1,850 pounds of rocket fuel to just lift me into space. Not the thing I'm riding on even.
And that's not to mention all of the mechanisms that it needs to turn that fuel into power.
Yep. And the engines themselves and the things containing the fuel. Exactly. So like there's a reason that space travel is difficult and why there's been God knows how many failures for how many successes we've had.
Yeah. But
once you get to the moon, because of how gravity works, you just have to make sure as long as the moon is, as long as you have the resources up there to create the things for further travel, it's now incredibly inexpensive because it's easy to send something from the moon into space. So the first goal would be to colonize the moon. And also, this is important. It wouldn't just be for like a solely scientific adventure. It's not like I'm thinking like, yeah, all the rich people out there should pay for us to play on the moon. Because here's the thing. For an actual colony to work, or to eventually be worthwhile, it has to be self-sufficient. And we have a lot...
It's got to have workers, yeah.
Well, not just workers. There has to be a way for it to essentially give its home wherever it came from, wherever the colony came from. It needs to be able the way to give back to it. So, like...
Yeah. I think the way they would do that would be like... because everything that would leave from the moon that originated from Earth would have to have left Earth too, landed on the moon, and then leave the moon. So it's like you're adding a step, you're not taking away. But if the origin is not from Earth, so if we were mining asteroids,
there you go. That's what I was
to get ore and metal and all that stuff, and bringing that to the moon, then we would be making a profit instead of just wasting a step, of slowing down and orbiting the moon and landing there and then launching off of the moon once it's loaded or whatever.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Everything would have had to come from the Earth, unless we're mining asteroids.
So not only would we be sending precious metals and other resources back to Earth through the fact that we now have an easy launch point. Also, this is important too. The moons are what are also called satellites, which means they are permanently caught in the gravitational pull of Earth, but they're also far enough away to where they aren't being like pulled into it. So this is important for like mining asteroids and stuff. We can pull asteroids towards the moon. That way workers have an easy to and from point. So not so close to the moon that it's going to get rocket into it, but close enough to where you're not traveling to an asteroid belt to get to the asteroids. And you can work on them, and then when you're done, you just jettison them off in another direction, away from Earth. Or anything else you give a shit about. But because it's in space, it's not like, it's a lot easier, because again, you're not trying to fight an atmosphere now. And you're already at a point in our Earth's gravitational pull to where, like, our moon, in theory, is eventually going to leave us. And not even in theory, the way it is going right now, it is going to eventually float away from us because of where it is in our orbit. And that's how it is for all moons. They will always either come closer or get pulled away. And which inevitably means the loss of the said. So we just have to get them in that sweet spot, which is, you can calculate easily with math, to ensure that once you're done, you're just like, okay, done with you, sending you towards the sun. So but the point is, it's not just like I'm like, big companies should pay for my expensive moon idea, it would actually benefit Earth in not only monetary but like just like resource. We wouldn't have to worry about strip mining our mountains anymore because we can strip mine a asteroid that no one gives two shits about. Yeah. So like we wouldn't have to do things like that. So like it would placate multiple people. And again, like there are some asteroids with more gold in them than all the gold ever found on Earth. So there's not an insignificant amount of precious metals in space. And while yes, you might not want to bring gold back and collapse the gold market, iron will always be useful, for instance.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I'm talking about. Those kind of metals, those kind of resources. So that's what you're going to go for. You're going to go for stuff like that. And because you now have a colony that can go acquire it, you just have to get it back to Earth safely. And we've semi figured out how to do that. And by the point we're doing this, though, we should be more than capable of it.
Yeah. So, 'cause didn't they launch something that went into space and then came back and landed? It didn't just like fall into the ocean?
I think so. I don't remember what it was, but I believe you. And even if it was somewhat bumpy doing that, again, we're talking about like after we've made some pretty impressive achievements. Like we figured out how to pull asteroids. We can figure that out because because we already know how to slow down that stuff. I'm not like making the fallacy of because we've walked on the moon, we can walk on the sun. But
yeah,
we already know the basics of making the very thing, the very concept we just talked about, where we slow it down enough to where we can then acquire it safely. So we understand the basics. We just need to refine it.
And you know what? I think before we get even to the moon, so we have a space station, right?
Yeah.
And we send things back and forth between the Earth and the International Space Station. And so, what if we could, from there and from outside and stuff, like build things out there, so we don't have to launch from Earth anymore?
That would be the ultimate goal too, is because we're acquiring those resources. Eventually, the goal would be to be able to build a place that can make that stuff on its own. The only thing a moon base wouldn't be able to produce is anything that's it would probably be able to recreate a lot, just not anything obviously organic. So it would have to be whatever we're doing up there would have to be as synthetic as possible. Anyways, so the reason I bring up the other step though, because the moon base is at the end of the day, it could bring resources, but it shouldn't be like, oh, we've got resources, we should stop. The next step should be the Mars. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. It's like, again, it's really expensive, and it is. But it's fair to point out that right now, like the spending, like the excess spending of all the countries on Earth right now could fuel that project for hundreds of years. That's a single year of our excess spending could fuel said project for hundreds of years. So it's not like that money doesn't exist. We're just doing other shit with it. So, but here's the thing. Mars, to properly colonize, or to properly make a habitable planet, is going to take that like 1,000+ years of us doing stuff. Obviously, that will change based on technology. It could be faster, it could become slower. But as of right now, it would take I think it was 2,000 years, and that number would probably change as we refine the process of doing it. The first thing you'd have to do, though, is make a colony, and that's the hardest part. Because Mars has a bunch of problems, but they can all be fixed. And we would just have to rotate people out regularly to keep some of the problems from becoming too problematic. But yeah, so at the end of the day, we have the ability to create another habitable planet. It's just a matter of convincing a bunch of governments that this is worth that amount of time and money. You know? Also, we would have to come with an agreement that it is a neutral area. No one place. But luckily, because of how difficult just creating it as a habitable planet would be, until it was fully colonized and fully made habitable and we had built actual countries on it, we wouldn't really have to worry about a war, like a war being fought over it, just because, well, A, it would be too difficult to send an army there. And you would want the rest of the world's support in that because it started out that way. So it would be very dangerous to just for like monetary and like scientific research wise, you'd be losing out on resources to make it more efficient. And B, if someone is actually capable of claiming it as their own, at this point they've conquered Earth. Or they've maybe they haven't conquered Earth, but they have a dominant enough presence to where no one can really stand up and tell them no. If a war ever happened that caused someone to be able to claim ownership of it, either A, happened after we already made it into a full-blown planet we're inhabiting that's self-sustaining, or someone won so big here on Earth that we just can't tell them no, and then Mars is the least of the problems. So, also, you wouldn't have to worry about the problem with the Americas, where we were fighting either, just because of how difficult it would be to send people there. Like, yeah, you could send colonists, but sending an army would be a completely different story. And again, it would be such a hostile environment, it just wouldn't be practical to start a war over it on that planet.
Yeah, not on Mars, definitely. But, like, I can't see us colonizing the moon without the United States just saying, yeah, we own that, though. That's ours.
You think so?
You know? I can't see the U.S., like, being reasonable about that, because we're like, we planted a flag on it. That moon's ours.
I mean, one of the few treaties ratified by... Or one of the few... Actually, wait. No, the U.S. hasn't ratified a treaty since, like, the roaring 20s. Anyways, right now, while our Congress hasn't ratified it, we do have an agreement with other countries that space is neutral. And the reason there's an actual reason we don't want to break that agreement. And it's the same reason no one's launched a nuke at each other yet. It's because no one wants to open that can of worms. Because the second one country says, yeah, we're breaking that rule, we're going to start weaponizing space, and oh yeah, this moon is ours, neener, everyone else will start doing it. And one of the ways I explained it to my friend is, like, a lot of people be like, oh, well, everyone has it, so it's not a big deal, right? And it actually is a big deal, because even right now, if we have let's use nuclear weapons as an example, because we've actually had those scares. And we've been through the whole, as a race, we've been through the whole pointing missiles at each other, hoping no one fires. We came close to blowing ourselves up a few times, and we had like hours of time to make decisions and figuring out what was actually going on. The second you weaponize space, I think the math was with 5 satellites, you would be able to hit any point in the world with a weapon of mass destruction within minutes.
Jeez.
So no one wants that. Because mutually assured destruction doesn't work in that situation.
Yeah, but didn't Trump just make a Space Force?
No, he didn't make one. He wants to make one, and he's been attempting to push for it.
I thought they made a logo and everything, like it's official.
Yeah, I mean, they made a logo and they're trying, but we both know that unless future presidents follow up on that, it's not happening. B, a lot of people don't take the shit he tries to do seriously. And C, it really is it requires follow through. It requires follow through. And it's not so yes, Pence went and met with the Pentagon to try and make sure Space Force is a thing. Realistically, the only way Space Force is becoming a thing is it's going to happen so the moon thing isn't going to happen for a couple hundred years if we tried now. The Space Force would actually require something equivalent to that to be realistic. Because I heard, what's his face? Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about it, and he was like, yes, the Space Force is he was like, is it a good idea? He was like, as an American, I kind of think so, but he was like, it won't be here tomorrow. It will require multiple different branches of government as well as multiple different presidents for a while, all agreeing to continue it. And how many projects do presidents start that end up falling apart later because the new guy says this is retarded? Even if it's a good idea.
I don't know. I could see the Space Force continuing.
I could see it. I'm not saying it couldn't continue. I'm saying realistically, there's a good chance it won't. Also, again, saying we have a Space Force that's a thing. No, you're building the logistics to build a Space Force, which astrophysicists all agree will take quite some time. It will not happen within 4 years.
But they're astrophysicists. They're not like politicians. So
no,
I don't know
just from
their timeline on.
No, but they're so scientists agree. So again, this is assuming we have funding from everyone, the hundreds of years for the moon. Not just America, like everyone.
Yeah, to get to the moon. I'm just saying to have an established Space Force with actual military people that are part of it, so that when the next president takes over, they would have to physically like say, no, that's no longer a thing, instead of like needing to.
No, well, I'm saying there are people. Well, I'm saying there are people currently trying to prop it up as an idea, and people saying they're willing to join it. But the actual Space Force would require like actual like satellites or starships in space, which is not this will happen within 4 years plan.
It just needs personnel that are part of it.
You need equipment.
The next president would have to fire those personnel in order to stop the Space Force.
Presidents fire.
Like, that's all it needs to keep going.
People fire people from previous administration projects all the time.
Yeah, but this would be like, I don't know. I don't think it would take that much for future presidents to be like, fine, whatever. There's a Space Force. It's doing its thing. Whatever. You know, I don't think they would actively try to destroy it, because they would have to actively try and destroy it to stop it. It wouldn't just be like I'm ignoring it and it'll go away kind of thing.
Well, I understand they'd actually actively have to do something, but the reality is they could easily do it.
Yeah, I just think they would get a lot of backlash for it because the Space Force is a cool idea.
Well, since when do politicians give to... Well, some people think it's a dumb idea. So not everyone. I think it's an interesting concept, but I also understand the ramifications of it. Again, as of right now, the reason there haven't been any serious ramifications is because it's just a concept. There's no actual Space Force yet. There's just the beginnings of attempting to make one. But the reality is, the second we actually throw weapons up there with the intention of shooting other people with them, or we start putting starships up there, the rest of the world's going to throw a hissy fit, and one of two things will happen. We'll either all agree to stop, or everyone else is going to start doing it. And it's a whole new Cold War, but even worse, because unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we were like, should we? Maybe not. Or when Russia detected us flying a stealth thing that wasn't as stealthy as we thought it was, and they were about ready to nuke us for a good couple hours. Instead, you'll be like, I have 2 minutes as the president to decide if I'm blowing your ass up. Also, I'm going to die.
I don't see the whole like mass destruction weapons in space and satellites as being necessary for the Space Force. Like, I'm saying other countries will do to fight in zero G.
But
that's what I see as the Space Force.
The first thing we're going to do is the logical step that will happen with anyone that militarizes space. The first logical step would be to do what's called, in the military terms, be force multiplying. It's put the minimum amount of resources into defeating your enemy for maximum results. So, for instance, a Green Beret is considered, or a sniper is considered, a force multiplier, because a Green Beret will go in and he'll teach local resistance how to fight the primary resistance. And the sniper is a force multiplier because a single sniper can stop an entire battalion from moving for a whole day. So you've stopped troop movement with one guy. No, like, realistically, those concepts don't change just because you change the battleground. They never have. So you might say, like, I could see a president being an idiot and saying we're just going to put people up there. But the second we break that agreement that space is not to be militarized, places like China and Russia, who could give two shits about that, who already are game to have nukes and support tyrant regimes and do just bad things, would be like, yeah, so we're putting a weapon of mass destruction up there. I mean, right now, their solution to fighting our Navy is to have so many ballistic missiles that we can't shoot them all down. They're not known for reasonable, like, responses. And the thing is...
Do you think then, in order to do anything with space and make any progress, we would need to first be under a world government on Earth?
I don't think it would have to be a world government, but it would definitely be, we'd have to be in a, like, the logistics of what we're doing together would have to be intertwined to the point where one person could not just, it would not be easy to take over a project and just be like, haha, I secretly built this weapon, like this weapon of mass destruction in space, despite the fact that I've been working with 5 guys from 5 different countries and they all get to look over my notes. Like, it would be so intertwined that the idea of like someone secretly making it happen would be just not a worry, because it's just the web is too, like, everyone's too webbed together. Also, the first people we should be sending up there would be scientists, who a lot of times have the goal of improving things in mind, not fighting. Or not like world domination.
Yeah, I'm not saying there would be immediate fighting. I'm just saying, like, in order to cooperate and not have petty disputes over who owns what, we might need to have, I don't know if maybe the UN is properly set up to become a, like, something that everyone respects and become a hegemony for the world, or if it would have to be an existing country that just has such overwhelming power that everyone else just, says, okay, you're the leader. I don't know.
I think it would have to be multiple
in order to send scientists from whatever nation up there and do their thing and have everyone here doing their thing and putting all the extra money into the space stuff, we would have to we would have to move on from this thought process of what's China going to do to screw me over while I'm trying to do this, or what's Russia going to do to screw this up. We can't worry about that if we're going to be putting all of this money and resources into colonizing the moon, I
mean, I've heard some ideas of how to solve it. Obviously, right now it's all ideas. This is where, like, people who are like ambassadors and bureaucrats would have to hash it out, because that's more their territory than figuring out how to do it. But, like, the ideas I've heard from scientists is, one of the big ones I've heard is, if you get caught doing stuff that is in violation of agreements, such as trying to screw everyone else over, you wouldn't get a cut of the resources for X amount of time. Essentially, and like it'd be an embargo, or it would be a monetary disincentive or a resource disincentive. Like, okay, you, Russia, tried taking over the project and being like the sole person in charge of it and making it so you were going to get something huge out of this. And then the countries would obviously have to create a group that researches this together. And then they just have to kind of have a vote of, like you kind of see in movies, like, are they guilty? And then it's like, do enough people agree they're guilty? Yes. Okay. So for the first 10 years of this, you don't get any of the resources out of it. And if you choose to pull out, you don't get any of them. So essentially, it would be such a harsh punishment that the people involved would be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to try. I understand some people still might, because, sometimes you always need an example to show everyone you're serious. Because people will try to push that. There's a chance people will try to push that envelope. But, so far, the way wars get avoided in modern day between places like Russia and America and places like China and America is mostly because war is unpopular with your constituents and your people. Also, it costs a lot of money. So right now, the world being as intertwined as it is actually prevents stuff from happening. That is reality. And it's so bad that we actually, one of the worries if Hillary was elected president was that she would make, economic punishments worse for Russia, to the point where Russia would just say, fuck it, we're nuking you. We're all starving to death anyways, so we're going to nuke you, kind of thing. That was an actual concern. So we can we countries at this point can throw their wallets around to get influence. I wouldn't underestimate that.
Yeah, the more I'm thinking about all this stuff with governments trying to get into space, the more I'm starting to think maybe we just need SpaceX or Elon Musk or someone to just pioneer it as a private like business doing it, getting resources from their stuff on Earth and, you know, funding all of that. And then when they get there, set up a new government on the moon. So the moon is now like the Luna government, and it's now a separate entity from any of the governments on Earth. You know, it's not owned by anyone. It's not a colony. It's its own place with its own people that are immigrating to it. Like, you know, kind of like America.
It would have to start out as a colony. You know, that part's not optional.
A colony from an existing country? Like, why can't it just be people that volunteered with a private program to go and colonize a place?
What I'm saying is, to an extent, the territory would start out. It wouldn't belong to a country, but it's a colony. And the second you have a colony, you have to come up like, I don't know. I could see problems arising. So, I do want private corporations being involved in that because the part of the incentive will be to make money. Yeah. So they should be a part of it. Whether or not they should be in charge of setting their own government, I don't know about that. I believe it should remain neutral still. Just an agreement. It's just like the oceans. The oceans are neutral on Earth. Like, so all the things I'm bringing up, we actually have here on Earth. All the concepts we do. Like, is there sometimes some tensions? Yes. So, like, for instance, if you break laws in international waters, you aren't like, it's not like the movies or like the cartoons where it's like, we're international waters, so everything you do is legal. Actually, what it is now if you get caught doing something illegal in international waters, the way it works is you get sent back to your country of origin and they prosecute you and you're subject to their laws. So, like, that's how we keep peace on the seven seas, because, like, you can't just be like, well, I'm in international waters, so I could shoot up that cruise liner and you can't do anything about it. What would actually happen is I would be sent back to America, where America would be like, yes, murder is wrong. You will be charged with murder. Mm-hmm. And that's so
space is neutral, but an island in the ocean would be a country's or its own country.
There are neutral islands.
We're talking about an island in the ocean.
There are neutral islands too.
Yeah, but they're not that big, and they don't have governments set up.
That's why I'm saying we would have
to.
That's why I'm saying we would have to treat the moon like everything outside of our atmosphere. And obviously, this might need to change once we colonize a planet, because that's a completely different monster. Then yes, there should be its own governing bodies, simply because the logistics of a whole nother planet regulating another one is just ridiculous and never going to work. But as far as like the moon would be the equivalent in space of a small island that is neutral. However, Mars would be the equivalent of another island or continent in space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's not just a tiny island. It's like Hawaii when compared to...
I wouldn't... Not really.
You know, it's big enough to be a state in compared to the United States. It's big enough to be a country compared to the world.
I mean, not really, because our moon isn't ever going to... You can't expand the moon to that point, really. The bottom line... So the moon will be the moon will always be self-sufficient in that it can give us resources back to then give us incentive to keep putting money into it. But it itself will never be its own biome. It requires other people's upkeep for it. So if the better way to look at the moon, it would actually be less of a colony in that it's a place where people live and thrive, and more of almost like a middle point. It would be like the airport equivalent of space. It's how you get to the next planet. Does that make sense? Yes, you can use it to transfer resources.
It's like a port town.
Yeah, it would be a port town, but it wouldn't have and that's why it's important that it's neutral and that it doesn't have its own government, because it's now important to the transfer of resources between other places. So it affects too much, and that would incite conflict if they could try to just be like, well, we're going to cut you off. That would cause problems. But if everyone universally agrees, we all get access to it, none of us own it, we just own, the companies might own the resources they put on it, as far as like mining and stuff, but like it would be too integral and too easy to start a conflict over for such a small group of people. It would be a small group of people having too much power over a much larger group of people, I guess is what I should say too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not disagreeing that eventually you'd have to have a government somewhere else in space with this idea, like on Mars. But the moon, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's the gas station equivalent or the airport equivalent of going to the next planet in the final phase of this plan, which would be we having created sustainable populations and life on other planets.
Yeah. So I just think that I don't see all that happening unless we previously unify here a lot more than we are right now. So I think it's all possible and should be worked toward, but I think there's smaller goals before then to work toward that will enable us to do that. So that's kind of where I'm landing on it. It's definitely a thing to shoot for, but I don't think we can make plans right now to start shooting for it. We need to get our own crap together on this earth before we leave it, you know?
I mean, I could see your point on that, but I don't know if we'll ever reach that point. Humans are inherent. We inherently are pretty bad at getting along.
Yeah. See, so the only thing that I've given much thought to with this kind of a system is the stuff that's in the Ender's Game books, because there's two prequels to Ender's Game, and for both of them, Earth has already colonized the moon and is using it as a base for sending out like mining ships and stuff like that. And of course, there's piracy in space because it's, you know, just like the ocean, really hard to track people down and stuff like that. But possible, you know, you can police it. Just it's harder, especially because in order to communicate, it's all delayed. I don't think they had a hegemon that was like, but he was basically like the head guy of the UN. He, you know, with the amount of power he had, it wasn't much. He wasn't like the ruler of Earth. He was just like the head of the people that were, you know, signed into it. And a lot of people, there was a lot of conflict still at that point. And so, but they had already colonized them. And so I guess like it is possible with a still tumultuous government to get out that far. But before they could start sending ships out to distant planets to colonize, they had to have two things. One was a united world government, which came because of the aliens that tried to wipe them out. And then once they were able to wipe the aliens out and there was no longer that threat, there was a bunch of war on Earth, and then they were able to establish the hegemony. And that stuff is detailed in the Shadow series that takes place after Ender's Game. Okay. So you have to have a world government there, and you have to have a fictional technology called the Ansible, which is immediate communication, faster than light communication. So I don't see going farther than Mars being possible unless we have some way to communicate faster than light. Because when you go that far, it's like it's quite a while before you actually get the messages from Mars, isn't it? Like, is it days or weeks or something?
So it would be the best equivalent I can give. I don't know if it'd be days or weeks. I'm trying to think, but traveling at the speed of light is like 8 minutes from us to our sun. So it would take. So if our sun suddenly cut out, it would be 8 minutes before we realized that happened. Is the best example I can give. So if we could travel at the speed of light.
So what about from here to Mars?
I think Mars is closer for sure because we're not on fire. So it'd probably be less than that. But I can see
it's a few minutes delay.
Yeah.
But
so
if you go much farther than that, communication becomes really hard.
So you don't need. So eventually. So again, actually, one important thing is the reason I only bring up Mars for now is because there's obviously other logistical problems to bring up, and I don't feel like it's an all or nothing thing. Like, we're only going to go out to space and colonize if we can colonize everything, because we would only be able to colonize, like, create permanent, life-giving colonies on planets that obviously meet our criteria as a species. So that is already important, and those are somewhat rare. But I'm not even counting the reason I'm not going into science fiction and stuff is because, like, right now, with not just with our understanding of physics, even if I could create a magical teleportation system, we are never getting outside of our home system. The way space works is so what it like our home system is our own galaxy, and all the other galaxies out there are moving away from us millions of times faster than the speed of light, and they're only getting faster because of how space works. So if I created teleportation right now, and I tried teleporting to one of those locations, I would by the time I landed there, it would already be moving away from me.
Well, no, we're not talking about speed of light teleportation.
No,
we're talking about instantaneous. That's the fiction you're going toward.
No, I'm saying yes.
That's true for speed of light. You can never catch up to those because they're going faster than you can possibly go. But if you could instantly teleport to them, then you're instantly there.
I'm saying
it's breaking the rules of your own game.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to point out though is because of how space works, I've already accepted that something like the Ansible is not needed because we wouldn't be able to use it. So assuming we can fly faster, we achieve faster than light travel though, according to again, this is math, so it would change based on technology for the time. But based off of generous math, it would still take us thousands of years to colonize every planet in our habitable galaxy. So I've accepted that it's going to be few and far between when we inhabit them. And also that, yes, communication will be dodgy for a while between all of them. And that will probably never change. And if it does change, it's going to be because we found some magical MacGuffin, And that's that. And yeah. I'm going under our current understanding of the universe for all of this. Because imagine saying, well, this could exist, so this should be the plan, is not a plan.
And while science any plans based off of fictional things, that's why I'm brought up that in order for those colonies to be possible, they needed a faster than light communication device. And so
but they don't. In real life, they don't.
One. I don't know if we can go further than Mars.
But what I'm saying is, in real life, they don't. Because again, the colony that goes to Mars would have to be sufficient. The ideas for it, they would have to be able to. They are cut off when they are starting off from us. If a problem happens, they are fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So the accidents could, and I mean at least one will probably happen. So will there be communication? Yes, but it'll be more along the lines of, hey, 10 minutes ago I learned that 4 years from now our replacements are showing up. Stuff like that. Or worst case scenario, hey, I just found out Earth got into a civil war, blew itself up, and now they're all living in Bronze Age. And the last communication sent was, sorry guys, you're fucked. So who wants to have a party before we just go off and walk into space and die? It would be that they would start out at that level no matter what. So and obviously the farther we go to try to go out, it would get worse. And that's when we would have to accept that once we send those colony ships out, we probably won't get to encounter them for quite some time, or there would be long delays in communication, that kind of thing. We would be 200 years, we would have to just keep somehow logs of what's going on, and then 200 years later it would be oh yes, you are the people we sent out hundreds of years ago, and you are not those people, you are their descendants. To go out too far would be mean to accept that, and it would be possible, but it would be more done less for resources and more because as a species we have a natural inclination to want to spread out. It would
we'd be planting seeds. We wouldn't be spreading our influence.
Exactly. Those we would have to accept that once we send those people out there, our influence over them is pretty much done and over with. So the Elon Musks of the world would have to want to do those things, and
would want to have to go with them and not control them from Earth.
Exactly. They would have to want to explore because they want to, not because someone told them to. Realistically. Yeah. So I'm going under the principle of we will be going at a acceptable speed that is foreseeable, not something that we haven't from some weird MacGuffin we haven't found yet. Yes, there is a limit to how far we will go, but colonizing Mars and eventually making it a habitable planet would take thousands of years. But the benefits far outweigh all the downsides. like for one, if the worst were to happen to one of the planets, we have a backup. That's number one.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits.
Number two is we could find it would give us a chance to try and get our shit under control here. Cause right now I don't think we're at doomsday levels of shitting on our Earth. But one of the arguments for why we don't is because it's like, well, you have to convince everyone that we like to give up their luxurious whatever or companies to give it a break. But like if there's more money to be had in space, like I said with strip mining an asteroid, suddenly it's actually monetary. It's like it's an incentive for them to do that exact thing. Stop abusing us because there's something that is harmless that. Well, I mean, I'm sure someone out there will like some crazy bullshit person will be like, "There's life on asteroids. They deserve life too." Will like appear. But like, we'll ignore them just like we ignore the loud minority of the rest of the crazies on this planet. Like, the majority of people who say dumb, stupid shit, we ignore. They occasionally appear in a BuzzFeed article, but even everyone's just like, yeah, dumb people say dumb shit. What's new? Is the sky blue? I swear to God, if you try to give me some dumb scientific explanation how it's not technically blue, I will reach out to Idaho and smack the shit out of you.
It looks blue to me.
No, I know. I've said that before, and someone was like, well, technically it's not blue. And it's like, shut the fuck up. You understand the point. But yeah, so ultimately what it comes down to is we would have to an extent, agree, get some of our shit together. Like, I'm not saying today we could do this on a political spectrum, but I'm saying we could figure it out. And there would definitely be some hiccups along the way, which is why you would have to create a system in place to both reward and punish those who play with and against the system. Because again, I think we can agree some asshole out there is going to try to take advantage of it. But yeah, it's like, so I agree that it's not tomorrow we could make this happen. I'm saying, look, it's already going to take a long time, but in that 2,000 years, everyone will benefit. There'll be more money. There'll be more resources. It might help bring us together, maybe create not a world government, but something like every country is its own state kind of thing. And we now get along better because of it. Like, so I
think the United States is a good example of that, of how that could work. Just a bunch of splintered things, but there's a world government on top of all the federal governments, on top of all the state governments, And just extend it one further, that would make sense.
And instead of having like a president, or if you do have a president, it needs to like switch out in a way that doesn't benefit one group too much. But assume like it's just a governing body, like a parliament.
Well, I mean, we would need. I would feel more comfortable with multiple branches, though. So I'm thinking multiple branches, but I wouldn't want one. But also,
I wouldn't want to create the presidency of the world government. It would always be like maybe the equivalent of our Speaker of the House or the Speaker of the Senate, or the Majority Leader, of the Senate, where you get your position by everyone agreeing, another group of people agreeing underneath, like, yes, for now we will look to you for leadership, kind of thing. Does that make sense? Like it would. But
then we also need we would need to agree on a few different parties, and then that's a whole nother system that it relies on there being.
But I'm simply saying I could see that
a specific party
happen.
To be allied with.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just saying I could see it happening. It's not unrealistic to be like, say like, hey, this could be a thing. And I'm saying that something like us working towards a goal like that could be a catalyst, because we're now forcing ourselves to work together and get along. And as a result, it helps things get better. It's like kind of like how. Look, I'm not going to pretend like America doesn't still have some problems with prejudice and stuff, because in some places we clearly do. So I'm not saying this like out of like some ignorance as like just because we've had a black president means like racism or something is over. That being said, if you look at like the civil rights movement, when it happened, a good portion of America was like, no, fuck this group of people. And a bunch of other people were like, hey, maybe we should just learn to get along. And now the people who say, hey, maybe we should just get along, outnumber the people who say, no, we still think this group of people should go fuck themselves. And the reason for that is the groups of people were forced to mix and get along. And when you force people to get along with each other, eventually they try to come to an understanding. It's like that whole there are no everyone's a brother when they're in a foxhole together concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I did overnights, I became friends with people that after we stopped doing overnights together, we stopped being friends. But it was because we were forced to interact. Like it's not like we hate each other now. It's just we no longer keep in touch. But due to the fact that we were forced to interact with each other, it was kind of just one of those things where it's like, well, I guess we're brothers now. How are you doing today?
Yeah.
I could see
I think a
similar
better example
happen.
of that that's less like explosive would be like gay marriage. If you look at like 15 years ago, if you asked a random Republican, you'd probably get a like, oh no, they shouldn't marry, like maybe civil union or something, but that's a sacred word, you know. But now if you ask a Republican, they're like, I don't freaking care what they do, just, you know, whatever.
Do I get their vote?
So
Then
it's
yes.
like yeah, like the normal Republican stance now is like, yeah, sure, they can marry, whatever, I don't care about that anymore. And so
there are other pressing problems.
that's kind of the and that wasn't like a generational, like, well, there had to just be a new generation in order to outnumber the people who were still racist in the old kind of racist way. Like this was just a shift of like Republicans realizing that it was a stupid hill to die on and nothing really horrible is going to come from it. It's just like, whatever, that's, you know, we've shifted now and that's fine.
I mean, one of my favorite political parties that I find highly amusing is called the Pink Pistols. It's a group of, it's essentially gay Republicans who are hard believers in the Second Amendment.
That's funny.
I've even heard other like hardcore Republicans being like, "Yeah, I can get behind that."
Yeah.
One of them even told me once, like, "I could see you being a part of that group." I was like, "Thank you." I think. But yeah, so I agree. Like, there's certain things where eventually I feel like we're just gonna be like, I don't want to say like we're forced to get along because we're forced to work together. And not forced in a, like, no means no kind of way, but, like, forced in a just, this is the natural order of things. Eventually, we will get along out of self-preservation and out of not even just self-preservation, just, like, no one likes, at the end of the day, people just don't like drama most of the time. Yeah, some people thrive on it, but the majority of people are like, I don't really want to deal with this, man.
Yeah.
So... I think that would be where that would go. So out of curiosity, would a world government be one of your, like, decades or 100 years from now kind of ideas that you would like to see? Is that something you think would benefit humanity?
I think so. I mean, it's hard with the lack of, like, cultural, like, homogeneity. Like, every country still has their own culture. And their own language, but like English is becoming more and more the language of business. Like, hey, if you want to be a business person, even in China, like, you've got to learn English. Most of the people in China and Japan and like even Russia or Europe, most of them like have English as classes in school so they can speak English as well as their native language. And so, like, I think the more that just happens, the more culturally we'll start to homogenize. I think before that can happen, the culture of the world needs to kind of sync up. So I think places like North Korea, China, maybe Russia, I'm not sure, that like limit their public's access to internet and media would have to stop doing that so that everywhere has the same internet and the internet can unify the world's culture, I think. And of course there'll be some differences of like, oh, I grew up here and here we have this kind of a thing, or we celebrate these kind of special days for our culture. But beyond that, like, we'll all kind of, I don't know if it'll be the like US culture that will kind of infiltrate everywhere, or if we will start getting like we're already influenced by like, you know, the immigrants that are coming in. So it's just, I don't know, I think everything's just going to become a mixing pot. And then by that time we will, like, there'll be no reason why why we can't all be unified in selecting a government to govern us all, you know? Like the scale is a lot bigger. So like even for our United States, the system we originally set up was not designed for like 500 million people, but it's, yeah, we're evolving as it goes and we're making it work. So if we then jump to 7 billion, like it's not, we would just have to figure out how to make it work. And I don't think I don't think it could be the United States being the world government now and like taking over everywhere. It would have to be some sort of third party like the UN just rising to prominence and being like, all right, now we run the show and you all are subject to us, but together, and you elect us and you all, you know, direct us, like we are unifying everyone. I think you see that a lot in sci-fi novels. That's like a very common thread between a bunch of them, is that there is a world government. And I think that it's not only possible, but it's something that we should pursue and make sound normal in our culture, so that,
because normally when people hear world government, they think like tyranny.
Yeah,
because they assume
a dictator, obviously.
Yeah, because I think when people hear world government, just because sci-fi normally shows it as like some tyrannical force is normally in charge of the world government. I'm trying to think of one that isn't. Hunger Games, world government, tyrannical. Ender's Game.
I don't even know if that's the world. That's a pretty small world. I think they're also at war with another nation, so I don't think Hunger Games falls under that. They're just a dictatorship nation.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the world in totality, but there's obviously been some sort of apocalypse. But
I don't know.
Okay,
Anyway.
we'll discount that one. But Star Wars eventually ends with the Empire, which is the equivalent of a world government.
But the Old Republic was fine, and it was the same kind of thing. It's just, you know, I don't know.
I'm
it's
saying,
sometimes
I
it's bad, sometimes it's good. I mean, Star Trek has a world government that's great. Ender's Game's world government is pretty great. And then there's even an world government by the time they... What?
Ender's Game's government becomes fairly tyrannical.
Well, not after... So there's a wartime between Ender's Game and the trilogy that's after, that follows Ender's life, but it goes forward like 1,000 or so years. And like after maybe a decade of war, they unified under a hegemon. And then that hegemon was succeeded by another one. And since then, there's been a steady world government that's not tyrannical anymore. And then even an interworld government that is in charge of all the colonies.
Yeah.
So
I'm not disagreeing that in some of the points, at some of those sci-fi worlds, there's eventually a happy ending for the world government. Like there's a good one. I'm saying that in all of them, there's also the shitty version. And a lot of times the story revolves around the shitty version. You know, like when you bring up when I brought up Star Wars, I was like, yeah, there was. And then and then the equivalent of a world government for them is the reason everything got shitty. And there are a lot of the shitty events in Ender's Game series revolve around the world government becoming tyrannical and shitty. I'm saying that, like, yes, are there happier versions in all of those? Correct. That would be 100% true. But the bottom line is the thing that you're fighting in those pop culture references is always like a world government equivalent. So I'm not saying that, like, yeah, they don't appear in them. I'm saying that they all have a bad version too. And negative bias is a thing. For all of you who don't know what negative bias is, it's the concept that negative things stick in your mind more than positive things. And I think the one shitty experience you've had at a restaurant.
In the same vein, though, like, yeah, there's good governments even in our world, and you know, for one nation, and then there's shitty governments in another nation, and we see the contrast and see what's different. So like, there can be shitty world governments, but then there's also good ones. So I think lots of people understand that. So, but yeah, so when you first say it, flashes of of bad ones come to mind, but then when you like get into it, you realize like, oh, they can be good. And that's what we need to fight culturally in order to move toward it, is to get rid of those bad reactions as the initial thing and think of a good one first. And then, never forget the bad ones because you want to steer away from them, but always have it in your mind. They shouldn't be the focal point. We can work together to make a good one, because the good one is possible.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. I was simply pointing out that the real problem with the world government, I think, would be you'll need to fight as a cultural thing.
Yes, yeah, that's why I said cultural first.
Yeah,
and then once our culture is kind of more homogenous than it already is, because it's already like Hollywood ships out culture, and everyone else takes it in, and they are like.
Did you just give Hollywood credit for things getting better in the world?
I just said it's got a good model of shipping out culture. We need to make sure that culture isn't degenerate, but
yeah,
but it's got a good model for shipping out culture, because like the amount of people that in like European countries that don't speak English as their first language, that know Friends and have seen all of Friends, would like surprise you. It's like all of these movies and series that define American culture are being shipped out and seen by other people, and it's kind of already starting down that road. I just think we need to be a little more conscious about what we send, what message we're sending to the world.
Real quick, interesting side tangent on that topic. Did you know there's a group of people who send American pop culture into North Korea, but make sure it's like translated properly so that North Koreans can get an accurate representation of what Americans are actually like?
Huh.
So because
how do they accomplish that?
Flash drives normally. So as it's all usually just sneaking stuff across the border and like flash drives and stuff. And the people making it usually don't cross the border. It's other people on the other side of the border.
Yeah.
But like that's a thing.
Interesting.
Because A, media is obviously heavily regulated, and B, you're taught in school that we're like a bunch of cannibalistic monsters who want to kill them, but that we're also weaker than them and smaller than them, and that everything we say is a lie. Like I was watching Adult Swim once, and they showed what the Koreans show people in Korea is our version of The Simpsons, like, and it's bastardized, and it just makes us look like the worst monsters ever. Like, think of everything a human being can do wrong to another human being, and like with the exception of like sexual stuff, it was happening in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like from murder to cannibalism to like just depravity, it was just in there. And it was just like it's fucked up, but like also from like the outside perspective of as a person who isn't being indoctrinated by this group of people, it was actually very interesting.
Yeah,
like I'm almost flattered how much of monsters they like want to make us look out to be, because I'm just like, well, if we were this big of monsters and still had a country, like we like that's almost impressive in its own right. It's like that person who fails so bad that you almost have to be impressed with their failure.
Yeah, it's like you got every single question wrong. I mean, if you just filled out random things, you'd get at least a quarter of them right.
Yeah,
you got every single question wrong.
Which means you thought about it and went, yes, this is the correct answer, and we're wrong every time.
Or there was this one, I don't remember what it's from, but it was a kid that got a 0% on a true or false quiz. And the teacher was like, yeah, right. You're just failing this on purpose. Like, you knew every answer so that you could select the one that was wrong. Like, thanks. Good job.
That's funny.
It was like he was trying to cause trouble or something. And so he knew everything. He just answered everything wrong.
Just to slide him, the teacher should have given him an A.
She did. There was a 0 on it, and she's like, I don't need to talk to you about this. And he's like, it was a true or false, and you got every single one wrong. And he's like, yeah, I guess I need to go to detention or something, or I guess I need the extra stuff, because he was like interested in a girl that was there or something like that. And she was like, and put a 1 and 0 in front of the 0, and was like, you got everything right, because there was only 2 options. Like,
yeah,
I'm not that stupid. You knew what you were doing.
If you like her, just go talk to her, you dumb piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Well, we've actually been going a pretty long time now, but I actually kind of like how we I like this one. This was a good one.
Yeah.
We also came to some agreements on stuff.
Yeah,
So.
world governments and colonization and culture and all that jazz.
And if we meet Martians, fuck the Martians. I mean, what?
Yeah. Who? And I mean,
Is
like,
it racist
once we get to Mars,
am I being racist or speciest if I feel that way?
I don't know. But once we get to Mars, it's only a matter of time before the Federation of all the aliens come find us and be like, "Hey, you did it! You made it to another planet. Here, so here's some technology. This will help you a little bit, and welcome to the Federation."
What if it's the opposite, where there's an over lingering species above us, and the second you acquire that level of technological prowess, they just show up and blow us up because they don't want the competition?
Yeah, I don't know. Would we do that though?
I want you to think about human history. I want you to think about human history, and then I want you to answer that.
Yeah, but we've learned from it now.
No, we haven't.
Did.
No, we haven't.
What?
We've used weapons of mass destruction since the Bronze Age, and we're still thinking of new ways to kill each other on a mass scale.
No, I mean, like, if we find a new, like, little alcove of native people that are still in, like, South America, because they're still finding people that have never been touched by us yet in the forests of South America. Like, we don't just slaughter them anymore. We, like, study them and stuff. You know, I think we would be studied. We wouldn't be slaughtered.
On the same note, though, I also know both real people in real life and actual politicians who call immigrants invasive species. I'm simply pointing out we're pretty big assholes to ourselves. I don't want to think what we might do to another culture.
If we were to find like a developing civilization on another planet, I don't think we would nuke them. That's just also what I'm saying.
I remember something Stephen Hawking said. I'm sorry I'm bringing up him for this, but, you know. He said that it's ignorant of us to assume any alien life we find out there would have any, what we would consider any form of humanity.
See, I wouldn't assume. I'm just saying, what if? It's a possibility. Jeez.
I just assume they're gonna want to, like, I never assume that things are gonna end well. I guess that's the realist in me who's just like,
you can't assume that they'll kill you either. You're taking it the other extrme. It's like, who knows what'll happen. Both are a possibility.
I'm saying mine's safer. I don't assume the alien in front of me wants to fuck me or has boobs, because, you know, why would it have boobs? But Star Wars and Mass Effect seem to think they will. But like, I'm going with the alternative.
How else will they feed their young?
I see the Reapers are more likely to exist than what are they? Actually, the Krogan's a bad example, and they're the first ones that pop to mind. The blue-haired ones, the ones that are all like girls. That one.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, wait, you haven't played Mass Effect?
No.
Do you know what the Reapers are? They're the exact same thing I just said, where they're just like, ooh, look, species are becoming advanced. That's adorable. Zap.
Yeah, I think I had heard of that. Like, I had gotten a general synopsis of the plot, but yeah, I don't know. Or even worse, names of anything.
What if it's even worse than that, though? What if, like, another alien race comes across us? Not even because they saw we were advanced. They just came across us, and they're like, oh, they build really cute concrete structures, kind of like ants. Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to suck when they die because we evaporate all their water to get to the resources underneath.
Those are all possibilities. I just think it's also possible that they could set up a national, like a forest preserve, you know, over our country or our world.
Yeah.
I mean. So,
yeah, that makes me feel so much better. I mean, compared to an animal.
Don't mess with them. They're still developing. Just watch. It's so cute.
I like how we said we were about done, and then we just kept going on a rant about fucking aliens and whether or not we think they're going to kill us or rape us or not.
Yeah. And just for everyone to know, like, this was a conversation that we had that took hours, so I think we should truncate it at that and just have a reference and jokes about it.
You don't want to hear 6 hours of this.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear 6 hours of this.
Nope.
Because I'm right and he's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think we've both made a good case. And
let's agree to disagree.
So, if you want to find us, we have got a Facebook page at Nothing Specialty and a Twitter at Nothing Specialty without the G. This is going up on Google, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, everywhere you can plug an RSS feed. You can plug us in and listen and get updates. So subscribe to our feed and subscribe to anywhere, wherever you get podcasts. It's also going up on YouTube. It's got a playlist, and so that's good. And everywhere is linked in all the descriptions of everything. So just find us and follow us and email us at nothingspecialtypodcast@gmail.com, and we will hear from you and answer you and talk about anything. If you got a idea for any kind of future subjects, then definitely drop us an email and see what we think. And we might just spend a whole hour arguing about your idea. Who knows?
Yep. Have a good week, everyone. They can hear me still, right?
Yeah.
They just can't talk back to me.
Yeah. Yet.
That's a shame.
We're still working on that technology.
Screw it. The next thing everyone needs to work on is the holodeck, so I can talk to all of you and not feel weird because I feel like I'm like talking to you. In reality, you can't talk back. This is going to be the running gag. I hope you guys don't get too sick of it.
You'll get used to it. But until then, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.